Adriano. Adriano was once one of the most feared strikers in world football. At his peak with Inter Milan, he combined incredible power, speed, and one of the hardest shots in the game. Many believed he was destined to dominate football for years. But after the death of his father in 2004, Adriano's life began to unravel. His form declined rapidly, and reports of heavy drinking and long absences from training began to surface. Years later, his name appeared in Brazilian police investigations connected to organized crime figures in Rio de Janeiro. Authorities claimed he had associations with members of a drug trafficking group operating in the favelas where he grew up. While Adriano denied direct involvement in criminal activity, the allegations added another dramatic chapter to the story of a career that once seemed unstoppable. Bruno Fernandes de Sousa. Bruno Fernandes de Sousa was a successful goalkeeper in Brazil and captain of Clube de Regatas do Flamengo during one of the club's strongest periods in the late 2000s. On the field, he was respected as a leader and a reliable shot stopper. Off the field, however, he became involved in one of the most disturbing criminal cases in football history. In 2010, Bruno was arrested in connection with the disappearance and murder of his former partner, Elisa Samudio. Investigators uncovered evidence linking him to a plot that led to her death. The case shocked Brazil and dominated national headlines for years. Bruno was eventually convicted and sentenced to prison, turning a once celebrated football figure into one of the sport's most notorious criminals. Adam Johnson. Adam Johnson was once seen as one of England's most promising wingers. After coming through the ranks at Middlesbrough FC, he earned a move to Manchester City FC and later became a key player at Sunderland AFC. His pace and dribbling ability made him a regular feature in the Premier League and even earned him appearances for the England national team. But in 2015, his career came to a sudden halt when he was arrested and charged with sexual activity involving a minor. The case quickly escalated into one of the biggest scandals in English football at the time. Johnson was eventually found guilty in court and sentenced to prison, bringing an abrupt and shocking end to what had once been a very promising career. Tony Adams. Tony Adams is widely remembered as the legendary captain of Arsenal FC, leading the club through some of its most successful years in English football. But earlier in his career, Adams struggled heavily with alcohol addiction. In 1990, after crashing his car while drunk, he was arrested and later sentenced to prison for drink driving. The conviction forced him to confront the serious impact alcohol had on his life. Adams later spoke openly about this period, describing it as a turning point that ultimately helped him recover and rebuild both his life and career. While his story involves crime, it is also one of the rare examples where a footballer managed to turn things around and become an advocate for addiction recovery. Joey Barton. Joey Barton built a reputation throughout his career for being one of the most controversial figures in English football. While playing for clubs such as Manchester City FC and Newcastle United FC, Barton was frequently involved in disciplinary incidents both on and off the pitch. In 2007, he was arrested after an assault outside a nightclub in Liverpool. The attack left one man seriously injured and was widely reported across the UK. Barton eventually pleaded guilty and was sentenced to prison. Although he later returned to football after serving time, the incident cemented his reputation as one of the sport's most notorious personalities. Ronaldinho's passport case. Ronaldinho is remembered by many as one of the most naturally gifted players football has ever seen. During his time with FC Barcelona and the Brazil national football team, his creativity and joy on the pitch captivated fans around the world. Yet in 2020, Ronaldinho made headlines for a completely different reason. He and his brother were detained in Paraguay after entering the country using allegedly falsified passports. Authorities launched an investigation that resulted in the pair spending time in custody before eventually reaching a legal settlement. While the case was far less violent than many others on this list, It still shocked fans to see one of football's most beloved icons involved in a criminal investigation. Lee Hughes. Lee Hughes was a prolific striker in English football, particularly known for his time at West Bromwich Albion FC. At the height of his career, he was one of the most reliable goal scorers outside the Premier League. But in 2003, Hughes was involved in a car crash that resulted in the death of another driver. Investigations revealed that Hughes had been driving dangerously before leaving the scene of the accident. The case went to court and he was convicted of causing death by dangerous driving. Hughes was sentenced to prison and his career was effectively derailed by the tragedy. George Best. George Best remains one of the most iconic footballers of all time and a legendary figure at Manchester United FC. His skill, charisma, and lifestyle made him a global celebrity during the 60s and 70s. However, his life off the pitch was often chaotic. Best struggled with severe alcohol addiction for much of his life, which led to numerous legal issues. In 1984, he was arrested and served time in prison after being convicted of drink driving and assaulting a police officer. His story became one of the most tragic examples of how fame, pressure, and addiction can derail even the greatest talents. Rene Higuita. Rene Higuita was one of the most unconventional goalkeepers football has ever seen. Famous for his daring style and the spectacular scorpion kick, he became a star for the Colombia national football team during the 1990s. But his career was temporarily halted when he became involved in a kidnapping case connected to drug cartel figures in Colombia. Higuita acted as a mediator between the kidnappers and the victim's family, transporting ransom money between both sides. While he claimed he was trying to help resolve the situation, Colombian law still considered his actions illegal. He was arrested and spent several months in prison, missing the 1994 World Cup as a result. Duncan Ferguson. Duncan Ferguson was known as a powerful presence as a striker for clubs like Everton FC and Rangers FC. His aggressive playing style often pushed the limits of physical football. In 1994, during a match while playing for Rangers, Duncan Ferguson headbutted an opponent in an off-the-ball incident. The act led to criminal charges being filed against him. He was convicted of assault and sentenced to prison, becoming one of the very few players in modern football history to serve jail time for an incident that happened during a match.